We have 38 to 41 is where God speaks to Job, gives him the what for. And then in chapter 42 is a historical epilogue. It's Job's restoration. And I wish I had been teaching this or starting to teach this weeks ago, in a sense, because chapter 42 is a wonderful Christmas message. Because God gives Job everything that he lost. Doubles it. Gives him more. And it's an incredible story about the way God gives us. Anyway, the prose sections of Job is kind of plain language, written in pure Hebrew. They say the poetry sections are highly ornate, contains a lot of expressions characteristic of the Chaldeans. And remember, it's the Chaldeans that come at one point and take Job's stuff. And so the Chaldeans go way back into this time period that we're talking about, even in the time of Moses. All right, so anyway. Let's move on. Let's just read the book of Job. Here's my pristine Bible. I took a picture of it and I confess. I don't have any notes in this chapter 1. It's ridiculous.
See?
I'm just so upset with myself. But it's such a great story. Let's just read the book of Job, chapter 1. And then we'll move on from there. All right? All right. There was a man in the land of Uz. Sounds like Dr. Seuss already. All right? There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless, upright, fearing God, and turning away from evil. By the way, was he a Jew? See, you thought he was a Jew, but there are some who thought that actually he was from the line of Abraham's brother Nahor. And some were saying that. He was from the east. He didn't live in the promised land, but he lived in the area of perhaps Jordan, perhaps Saudi Arabia, in that area. And so it's an interesting thing, yeah?
There's a Job in the genealogy in the Old Testament of Exodus when they left Egypt. There is a Job in there under the tribe of Issachar. That's why they think that's the same
Oh, that's
Job.
an interesting thing. We'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, he's not identified as this guy.
Well, they think so, but they're not sure.
They is you and the writer of your book.
Yeah, and that's why he went to
No, I get it. I get it. Now, it's interesting. We'll look at it. We know about Job. Blameless, upright, fearing God, turning away from it. Blameless, by the way. Does that mean he's never sinned?
No.
No, it just means his sins are taken care of. He took care of his sins. He did the proper sacrifices to do that. There's no blameless man on earth save one. And even he wasn't blameless because he took our sin. 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. 10 kids. His possessions also were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and very many servants. And that man was the greatest of all the men of the East. And his sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day. What's his day? I read one that said that they did this every week. There's 7 sons, so every day of the week they were having a feast. I don't think, though, that's too much partying. But it's probably his day is probably his birthday, perhaps. All right. Used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and that would mean there were 7 feasts a year. That's a pretty good amount of feasts. And they would send and invite their sisters to eat and drink with them. The 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And it came about when the days of feasting had completed their cycle that Job would send and consecrate them, rising up early in the morning and offering burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "Perhaps my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did continually. So he's a good father. He's concerned about his kids. He does this at least 7 times a year, if not more, even for the daughters. Don't know. Then 6. Now there was a day. We got 5 verses and it describes Job. You've had 5 verses. Now the scene shifts, all right? It shifts to what the New Testament calls the heavenlies. It shifts to that area that we don't see. It's around us, but it's not like it's way up there, somewhere off behind some other planet. That's not what we're talking about. When Jesus talked about the kingdom, he said it's all around us. It's here. He said we don't see it. It's on a different level. It's as real, in fact, more real, C.S. Lewis would say, than this thing that we walk on right now. So the scene shifts to that scene. There was a day when the sons of God, what sons of God? Angels. Came to present themselves before the Lord. Satan also came among them. Satan is he's an angel. He's an archangel, and Satan was there. And the Lord said to Satan, it's interesting that that's the one, God is talking to. Well, from where do you come? Satan answered the Lord and said, going about, roaming around the earth, just trying to see what I can do, walking around on it. And the Lord said to Satan, you considered my servant Job. There's no one like him on the earth. It'd be interesting to know when exactly Job lived so that we would know who we would be comparing him with. I mean, what if he was a contemporary of Abraham? Because we know Abraham is our great example of faith, right? And we're saying, and God is saying, hey, there's nobody like Job on the earth this time. This is incredible. Job is an incredible person, an incredible example. And certainly, Job shows faith unlike Abraham did. Abraham's faith was a growing thing. Abraham showed many examples of lack of faith over and over again.
He lied about his wife.
There you go. But Job, this amazing guy. No one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil. And then Satan answered the Lord.
Pride goes before a fall.
Does Job fear God for nothing? Does Job fear God for nothing? In other words, what he's saying is, yeah, Job fears God because you're giving him a lot of stuff. Job fears God because you're making things good for him. No wonder he fears you. You're blessing him. Of course he's going to fear you. You're blessing. So does Job fear God for nothing? Hast thou not made a hedge about him and his house and all that he has on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But put forth thy hand now and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse thee to thy face. Now this is Satan tempting God to touch Job. And I want you to know, I don't think God touches Job.
That's right. He didn't.
Thank you. All right. Now this was Satan's chide to God. You touch Job and he'll curse you to his face. But God doesn't do that. And there are so many people that look at the book of Job and they say, look what God did to Job. Look what God did to Job. But let's see, because this was Satan chiding God to touch him. And then Satan says, well, then he'll curse you. All right. Then the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not put forth your hand on him. And so Satan departed from the presence of the Lord. Don't put your hand on him. Well, wait a minute. What about the boils? What about the boils? That doesn't come yet. That's in the second accusation. All right? So at this point, all that he has. This is the first time Satan appears to God. All right? And this is when the possessions get wiped out. Behold, all that he has is in your power, but don't put your hand on him. So Satan departed from the presence of the Lord. Now it happened on the day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. I just don't think this is a lesson against drinking wine. There are some who ply it here. All right? I don't think that's the idea. This is just what they did. That a messenger came to Job and said, came to Job, all right? The sons and the daughters, they're having another feast. The message came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans attacked and took them. They also slew the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, another also came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven. Wait a minute. Yes, it was God that did this. No, this is what it was interpreted as, the fire of God. It's just an accurate reporting of what the servant said. The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another on his heels came and said, thou Chaldeans formed 3 bands and made a raid on the camels and took them. Camels were like the
Cadillac.
it was like having a truck. It's like you could be a merchant. Your business was dependent upon camels. It was like having a fleet of FedEx trucks. And so it was the most valuable animal in that area of the world at the time. And he said 3 bands. They took the camels and they took them and they slew the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking,